You want to give turn the camera, Bhante, let me just get this lined up.
Get my mat.
Yeah.
Bhante, you have to unmute.
Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Buddhang Saranang Gacchami Dhammang Saranang Gacchami Sanghang Saranang Gacchami Dutiyampi Buddhang Saranang Gacchami Dutiyampi Dhammang Saranang Gacchami Dutiyampi Sanghang Saranang Gacchami Tatiyampi Buddhang Saranang Gacchami Tatiyampi Dhammang Saranang Gacchami Tatiyampi Sanghang Saranang Gacchami. Good evening, everybody. For this Wednesday Dhamma discussion and meditation practice. So after an absence last week, we're resuming our discussion on the Satipatthana Sutta. And if you remember, so far over the last month or longer, we've been going over the Mahasatipatthana Sutta, and we've covered mindfulness of the body, mindfulness of feelings already. And this evening we're going to review the contemplation of the mind. And the reason why they are given in this order, because really the body is the vehicle for this mind to operate through. And so first we have to get grounded and have a detached awareness to the body so that we can more clearly see the painful and pleasant sensations or feelings that are arising through our senses. And by this time, the five hindrances would have been suppressed for at least to some extent, where you're not getting lost in your thoughts and you're wide awake, not sleepy. So the mind becomes very more focused, because the mind is very subtle, and the body and feelings are more gross, and able to see our thoughts clearly with detachment. Then we have to already have some degree of concentration to effectively see them. we can kind of maybe vaguely know after we're caught up, oh, my mind's got angry now, but this is more subtle than that. It's being able to observe those thoughts before you become lost into them. So anyway, I hope that you were able to do the reading in the attachment that I sent out, the sutta that I sent out, that you were able to reread this section on the mindfulness of the mind. So basically, it's just identifying states of mind, not individual thoughts as such, but individual thoughts, of course, create what we call a state of mind. So if you catch your mind having some lustful thought, for example, then you identify, the mind has lust now, there's lust in the mind. Or it could be just a desire. There's desire in the mind, or greed in the mind. Desire, greed, lust, these are all basically synonyms for, that attraction to sensual objects. Or if there's no greed in the mind, then you understand that there's no greed in the mind. If you're well concentrated and you're staying with the breathing and not too many thoughts, then you can understand, there's no greed in the mind now, where there's no delusion, where there's no aversion. But anyway, so greed is the first of these because it's one of the most common ones that arises. So you simply know when it's there and you know when it's not there. Because you can only know it when you're able to see it clearly. Otherwise, we get lost in our thoughts and we don't have that objective distance to them. Or the second one is when there's aversion in the mind, aversion or hatred, ill will, aversion, hatred, these three are synonyms for basically what they call aversion. That means the mind not liking something. Or you understand that there's no aversion in the mind now. The third one is a deluded mind. If the mind has, let's say, is caught up in some spurious types of thoughts or thoughts of, conspiracy theories or just other thoughts of ego-centered thoughts and so on, delusions, various spurious ideas. And you say, the mind's got delusion now, or if the mind is without delusion. And then there's the contracted mind. The contracted mind would be a mind that's kind of just, shrunken. It's not aware very much. It's been kind of contracted, or it's contracted around an object or something. And an uncontracted mind would be a mind that's more, open and spacious, and is able to see things kind of come and go without the mind contracting around it. So let's say you have a pain arise and the mind immediately gets sucked into that pain. You start, that pain in my knee. So now the mind is contracted around that pain. Or a sound, let's say a sound goes off in your house. And then you start getting, irritated by the sound and thinking about the sound, who caused that. And so your mind gets contracted around the sound. There's no space in the mind. So that's one way of understanding what a contracted mind is. Or an uncontracted mind, a mind that again is more like awareness, where things are kind of coming and going, and the mind is not clinging so much to individual objects. Then there's a scattered mind, where the mind is just jumping all over the place. Uh, and it's, like a monkey swinging through trees, grabbing on one thing and then another thing. It can't kind of get focused. And these are similar to a concentrated mind and an unconcentrated mind. But anyway, some of these Pali terms are a little bit kind of overlapping. And then there's an expanded mind, where the mind is more expanded. When we call it expanding the mind, basically it means just having more awareness. When the mind gets concentrated, basically it expands. That means it's not contracted around an object, it's opening up. And it expands, so you can notice more and more sensations or sounds going on even simultaneously. Whereas before you wouldn't be able to, because the mind is more contracted and reacting to things. So awareness, developing awareness is an example of an expanded mind, not a shrunken mind. And then there's terms like a surpassed mind and unsurpassed mind. So these would be, let's say, in a state of jhana or something, or some very expanded awareness. And then there's liberated mind or the unliberated mind. Of course, that these terms need a little bit more, personal experience to understand what they mean. It means liberated from, distractions, liberated. Like even being in the first jhana would be a state of liberated mind, except for the object that you are being focused on. But in the furthest sense, it means like if you attain the state of stream entry and that awareness where the mind gets liberated from the fetters, actually. So it would probably equal that state of when the mind destroys the fetters, the 10 fetters, or at least some of them. Like when you attain stream entry, the mind gets liberated from the self-view, the personality belief, the belief that you have some kind of permanent ego or I that's kind of unchanging, that belongs to you. So that's also a deluded mind, but it's an unliberated mind because you're still tied by the ego or tied by greed and hatred. So basically, the Buddha goes through these various states of mind. But then also, that there's the aspect of the clear comprehension. And so the person understands, how does a state of mind be? How does greed arise in the mind? So you understand the factors that gave rise to greed. Now, what would you think gives rise to greed? Well, paying attention to the marks of beauty on a particular object that you identify, and you get attached to the marks of beauty. Oh, that is such beautiful skin, beautiful eyes, beautiful hair that person has, or just a beautiful sunset, or anything that the mind regards as being beautiful or attractive, and you focus on that. That is what brings up greed, and it could be to a person, even more so to a particular kind of person that attracts your attention, and then you develop desire and especially lust and things like that. Then that means you're paying attention to the marks of beauty, and that's how these things arise and how they continue. And that's why some of the meditation practices have you dissecting, objects or even the body to see how, and to see how all the 5 external parts of the body, skin, nails, teeth, the hair, and so on, they're impermanent, and only when they're on the body they look beautiful. But if you found a hair in your soup, you'd scream. or if you found a fingernail floating around in your soup or something, it's no longer beautiful, right? So anyway, these things take some time to understand. So it's knowing how these things arise, how do these mental states arise, and how do they cease? They cease when you develop wisdom and let go of that attachment and the habit of, that these greed, hatred, and delusion bring up. And it's because we've been cultivating these habits all of our life. They become ingrained in the brain and the nervous system, and we keep repeating it. That's how they arise. And how do they cease? Well, through the practice of this very kind of meditation, through the practice of satipatthana. You have to be mindful when they arise, and you have to apply the right effort to let go of them, and the effort to cultivate the opposite quality of them if needed, for them to cease. So it's that understanding. It's not just being aware of them. It's understanding the grip that these mental states have on us. How do they arise? What are we doing in our daily life that cause them to persist? Because whatever you do in your daily life, it's going to come up in your meditation. You can't just have your cake and eat it too. Like some people want to just meditate, but they don't want to maybe change the way they think or view their life around them. And so that's why they get, meditation becomes more difficult for them. But anyway, so knowing how those states arise, how does a concentrated state arise? Well, it arises because the more you practice meditation, the more you follow the precepts, the more you're able to weaken the hindrances. Concentration is going to arise more easily. And how does it cease? When you stop meditating. Now, many of you probably have that experience. You go on a retreat, several-day retreat, a 10-day retreat, and maybe because you're in a kind of a controlled environment of the meditation center, or maybe even on these guided meditations that I'm giving, you tend to stay more focused. But then when there isn't that kind of, conducive, environment, then the mind will start acting, in its old habits again. So it's knowing how they come, how they disappear, and how one can bring them to fruition and make them more permanent. And that's why, a study of the Buddha's teaching, and especially of sila, the practice of sila, the practice of, kind of renunciation, not being, not exciting the mind so much, and all these various guidelines that you find within the Buddha's teaching. That's why the Buddha taught the Dhamma exactly, so that people can have the right understanding and to know how these states arise and how they can cease. And then there's a third part of this. Then the person contemplates these states within themselves, or called internally and externally. So the person contemplates these mind states internally, that means within one's own mind, and externally. Now sometimes this is explained in different ways by some different teachers, but I like to, explain it in a way that externally means you're going to observe it in other people's minds. So if you see a person with greed in their mind or anger, you could say, greed has arisen in this person's mind. Or, anger or delusion. Where you see a person just running around, a person has a scattered mind. Because you recognize what they are in yourself, and then you can recognize them in the outside. So it's contemplating things externally is a way that you bring this into your active life, not just in meditation while you're meditating, but if you're in your office If you're in a supermarket, you're driving down the street, you can see these mental states because they're obvious in people. Especially the heavy ones like anger and greed and delusion and, like you see people just, talking mindlessly on a street corner, making no sense. They may have some, mental difficulties, but nevertheless, still, they're in a state of a deluded mind. So it's just acknowledging that these mental states are there. So that means you can practice anytime, whether you're in meditation or if your mind doesn't have anything in it itself around you all the day, you can notice it in other people. So it's reinforcing this idea that the Dhamma is everywhere. Greed, hatred, and delusion is everywhere. So that's one way that you can make sense of this, contemplating these things externally. And then there's a fourth level to the practice, the sutta, and it's the person understands these mental states exist. And then there's a fourth level. Oh, what's happening here? Judah, come help me out. Oh, yeah. I got to. And it's. Hold on a minute. I got to understand. It's the mental feedback from the YouTube live. What's happening here? YouTube live. I got to. Hold on a minute. I got to understand. It's the mental feedback from the YouTube live. YouTube live. I'm going to pause that. Okay, sorry folks. Maybe that was my deluded mind. Temporarily didn't know how to turn off that feedback from the YouTube live. Okay, so now we're going to come back to, after having gone through all those stages of the contemplation, first acknowledging when a certain state is in your mind. That's probably the most common form because, it's obvious when they come up, but you're not like every second, what's in my, hate is not in my mind now, greed is not in my mind now. You don't have to keep on kind of telling yourself that, but when the mind is in a state with those defilements, then of course it's easy to recognize. Anyway, so first there's a recognition of the mental state. Then there's how do these states arise because of past habit and practice and weak mindfulness. And how do they persist because of the weak mindfulness and the habit? Not being concentrated, and then how do they cease? By developing mindfulness and concentration, and also by following precepts and so on. How do they arise? Because a lot of them are connected with not following the precepts. Precepts even of speech, the 4 types of right speech, because we get caught up in those quite so easy. And then there's understanding that you train yourself to recognize when they're in you, but if you see them out in other people too, you can say, this person has greed. Then we can say, am I free from that yet? You recognize it in others because you recognize it in yourself. That you've had that before, and maybe now you don't have it so much. But anyway, it keeps you on your toes, always contemplating the Dhamma. So that's how we can contemplate the Dhamma internally and contemplate the Dhamma externally. And then you simply know that these mental states exist just for the sake of gaining mindfulness and right understanding. and then not clinging to anything in the world. That's the very last part. So once you've understood all these things, then the mind has realized all these mental states are just conditioned by habits. They're a source of suffering if I remain attached to them and disturbed by them. And so without clinging to anything in the world, that would be more or less in a state of meditation. So, in your state of meditation, your meditation practice, and then when you've gone through these contemplations in yourself, when you're meditating, of course, you're contemplating these in yourself. But if it comes out as a thought about somebody else, you can say, oh, that person had hatred in their mind or greed in their mind. But anyway, at the very end, the Buddha has us saying these mental states exist just for the sake of gaining mindfulness and wisdom, and you remain detached and aloof from any of the world. And that means anything coming through your senses. That is the world for the Buddha. What coming through your eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, or mind at any time, you remain detached from it. And by that time, you would have probably reached a state of, the third jhana or fourth jhana equanimity, and that helps you to remain detached. And any time after that, when other factors are right, one could, experience, the dissolution of the ego, because it's only us clinging on to these mental states, feeling mental states, that it keeps reinforcing the sense of me and mine. But when you're no longer clinging on to them, that's how the ice cube of the ego starts to melt, and the awareness expands. That's when you gain an expanded mind, an unsurpassed mind. All these states, it may not make sense now, but when you reach those levels, reaching the jhana levels and the awareness that can come out of that, and that's when you reach these higher states. And then you know how you got it. You know how this state arose because you spent so many days and weeks and months or years, trying to meditate, and finally you get a state. I had a person who's, has been just kind of studying with me for, about 15 years. And, they've heard all these things intellectually, and in their meditation, they can get some, get some glimpse of when the mind calms down and they can experience this state. But then just last week, I got a letter or email from this person said, this happened to me when I was washing the dishes. When she wasn't even meditating, she was just there washing the dishes, and all of a sudden the ego just dissolved, and she had this state of awareness in which there was, just seeing and hearing and feeling, but the sense of I and self totally vanished. There was this very, very, expanded awareness. And, even when you weren't meditating as such. And that can happen. And that is, a real, deep insight when you can get these kind of experiences, even walking down the street, or in that case, doing the dishes, or something else. You're not really sitting and being focused, but it's because the mind is trained for months and months, usually it's years and years. And to get these states little by little when you meditate, then even in daily life, the mind, because the mind is getting conditioned, the mind is, consciousness is goes through a transformation. A lot of people don't know what that means, but you definitely experience that when you meditate, when you start to attain either states of jhana or states of insight awareness. So that's how actually that ending is attached to all the different, the four foundations of mindfulness. It was the same with the body, and the feelings, and now the mind states. And so it's that clear comprehension again. The Satipatthana is not just about mindfulness, it's about developing mindfulness, concentration, and wisdom. Because as you gain more mindful, you get concentrated. And you have to get concentrated in order to be able to see these very subtle levels of change, and to have the kind of detachment, onlooking awareness that allows you not to get, sucked into various objects. And a concentrated state doesn't mean being absorbed in one object. A concentrated state means the mind is resting in the present moment. And it sees everything that's arising and vanishing through it. That's a concentrated state of mind. And so that is, of course, comes when you gain the first jhana level of concentration. That's when the mind becomes very, very clear and one-pointed. One-pointed means resting in the present moment. Doesn't mean lost in one object necessarily. Anyway, so that's what I wanted to basically say in this, reviewing this part of the Satipatthana Sutta. Now, if any of you have any questions, I don't see anything in the chat box, but if anybody has a question they would like to ask, or you can simply raise the golden hand. Or if you can't find the golden hand, you can just kind of speak up. If you have a question, you can unmute yourself and ask a question. Don't be shy. You have a question?
Oh, Bhante.
Dragon Yogi? Oh.
Bhante, can I ask?
Okay, who you are?
I'm Kat, Bhante. Yes.
Oh, hi, Kat. Yeah. Okay, what is your question?
Bhante, I'd like to ask, for this Chitta Nupassana, I recently went to retreat, and then I tried this Chitta Nupassana. It was like watching the thoughts coming and going. But then when I become aware, it's like I was saying something, and then when I become aware, it stopped mid-sentence, And then after some time, it become like it goes almost into like emptiness, but I cannot stay there for long. I mean, it's like after that, another thoughts come, or sometimes it's that I kind of like fall asleep for a short while. I just want to know how to like be mindful at this empty state longer.
Well, it takes a lot of practice, but recognizing thoughts is actually part of the Dhammanupassana, which we're going to go over next week. So specific, if you're watching different thoughts come and go, you're observing the mental formations, the sankhara khanda, whereas in the Chittanupassana, it's not individual thoughts we're observing, it's the overall state of mind. The mind has greed and lust in it now, it has anger in it now, it's diluted now, it's concentrated now, it has expanded awareness now. Now within that, of course, there may be the thoughts coming and going, but that's another contemplation. So this is specifically dealing with the states of mind, rather than the individual content of the thoughts. But they're connected, and you can't really separate them that easily. But so at the same time, you can recognize the individual thoughts within the mental state, of course. But that would technically belong to the Sankara Khanda, which are the mental formations, which include thoughts and emotions and so on. Like, yeah, like the mental state, they didn't mention fear in that mental state. That would be more of a Sankara, but fear could be part of a contracted mind, you know, a mind that's afraid, it's contracted around itself or something like that. You know, but
Fear,
it's kind of difficult to understand these things.
Oh, fear, is it similar to anger? I mean, like they are both under like dosa, is it? Fear and anger, are they on the similar kind?
Fear and
Anger.
anger.
Yeah.
Well, fear and anger are kind of different. I mean, they could somehow, they're different. I mean, you have afraid state. Basically, you're contracted around yourself. You know, you don't want to get harmed. Whereas anger can be directed outside. But the fear, you could be afraid of a person, but you have fear because you're afraid of getting hurt yourself. You know, so, but again, there's a lot of ways of, you know, kind of interpreting some of these mental states. Now, in terms of what you experience, you said you once you notice a thought, the thought ceased. Now that's true. Once we notice that we're thinking and we're not feeding the thought, we just have awareness, we recognize thinking, the thought may vanish. And if you have a deeper concentration, then those thoughts can be less and less and less until you know, you may not have any thoughts arising. But yeah, there's so many different variations of mental states that you can go through when you're developing, you know, the mindfulness and the concentration, especially when you get more concentrated. I don't know, did that answer your question?
Yeah, but then so we just need more practice to stay on this concentrated state. If not, then I mean, like, another thoughts will come up again. Is it?
The idea is the thoughts may come up, but they don't stick in your mind. They're just like bubbles floating through. And as long as you don't grab a hold of it and start thinking more about it, it doesn't really cause any disturbance. It's just like a bubble floating through, you know, space. The expanded mind of awareness is expanded. So when an object kind of floats through, it's just, you know, floating through. But normally the mind contracts around it and becomes contracted. You have to maintain the expanded state of mind. And that's the way that the thoughts don't get stuck there, and the thoughts generally will cease on their own once you gain a deeper level of concentration and awareness. That's why concentration and awareness have to be balanced. They work together. It's not one exclusive from the other one.
Okay. Thank you, Bhante. Thank you.
Okay. Dragon Yogi, you have a question?
Yes, Bhante. Wanted to ask the question about moods for the mind. I actually had two questions. One is the contemplation of moods for the mind, and the other one for the body elements.
Well, a mood, we're going to probably focus those on next week. That's part of the Sankara perception and the aggregates, the five aggregates, and the Sankara mental formations.
And the other was the contemplation on the body, the elements.
Yes.
Are we going to talk about that as well, or?
I talked about that already. That was in the first week.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And I'm saying is there any further contemplation on the elements, like how the relationship to nature?
Yes, the same elements that you feel in the body, earth, fire, water, and air, or solidity, fluidity, heat, and motion or wind, you find these, you contemplate these four elements are in this body, and they're also external. That's how you contemplate them externally. You see a
Okay.
rock, you say that's the earth element. You see a river, water coming out of a faucet, the water element. You feel heat, you see the sun, feel the heat, or even the cold, the variations in temperature, called the heat element.
We can also use it with people, like say when we look at people, other people.
Well, you understand that they're composed of, their body is composed of these four elements,
Mhm.
but we get attached to them. Actually, you know, it's a perception. You get a perception of a certain person, which comes from memory. And I may talk about more of that next week when I'm going through the contemplation of mental factors, or the contemplation of Dhamma, actually contemplation of Dhamma, the fourth foundation of mindfulness.
Thank you, Bhante.
You're welcome. Okay, is Dushyanti? You still have that hand up? Oh, no,
I do. Thank you, Bhante. Good evening. I have 3 questions, maybe. The first one is examining externally. So you'll observe unwholesome or wholesome states in other people's mind because you can see them in your own mind or in your own past experience or present experience. I'm wondering if the Buddha applied metta in this external observation. So, for example, I might see someone's greed and I might think, okay, I have greed as well. It might not manifest in that way, but it manifests in a different way. So I'm not any different from this person. I'm not better or worse. I'm actually the same, and I need to work on these things. And then instead of thinking about the differences, I think about the sameness, and it makes me on an equal plane. It humbles me and it makes me work harder to be better versus comparing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those kind of comparisons. That's part of it. That you see a person getting angry, then you say, "Well, I'm not free of anger myself," and so and you see how ugly that looks like when you're seeing, let's say, a person berating their child, you know, in a grocery store, or getting angry. You see how that, and then you say, "Well, actually, you know, I still have that in me," you know. And so it can motivate you to try to work on yourself more to gradually reduce those states of mind. Or somebody greedy, you know, grabbing a couple of candy bars or greedily eating food, you can reflect on that and notice how, well, maybe I still do that once in a while. So, you know, contemplating internally and externally, yeah, it helps you to reflect outside, but bring it back into you and to ask yourself, I'm not free from these states myself yet.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Also, Bhante, you mentioned concentration and awareness, resting in the present moment. It doesn't necessarily means that you're lost in one object. So does that mean that your objects can change as rising and falling occurs as long as you stay with that present moment awareness and you don't allow unwholesome thoughts to come? Or if you see an unwholesome thought, then you cut it at its roots and then you keep going with whatever arises and falls. And then the next question is that state of being called access concentration?
Yeah, that state of expanded awareness where objects are just coming and going without the mind clinging to them or following them. You know, that's a state of a momentary, moment-to-moment awareness. And it's a form of what's called Kanika Samadhi. It's a form of just before the full jhana, you gain this kind of Kanika Samadhi and then access concentration. They're, you know, closely connected. But in Vipassana, we're developing that kind of Kanika Samadhi, which means the ability to notice things as they just come and go, but without clinging to them. There's a constant flow that hardly ever stops until you reach a state of deep, third or fourth jhana, when the equanimity is developed and the thoughts will pretty much stop on their own. But awareness will be there, but it's like things are disappearing because we're not thinking about them. We're not giving them time.
Because the gatekeeping is so strong that the unwholesome won't even be able to come in even for a glimpse.
Yeah, at that state, it probably won't, especially if you reach a level of a jhana. But even if it did, you would notice it quick enough that it would just vanish and it wouldn't stick in your mind.
Mm-hmm. And then my last question is, I think you mentioned the 32 body parts contemplation, the skin and the nails and the teeth and so forth, impermanent, temporary, unsatisfactory, subject to decay. I'm wondering if this is kind of similar to the 9 stages of body decay. The way that I do the 9 stages is I imagine, because I don't have an actual body, and I'm wondering if imagining one of the stages could be dangerous. I was told that it could be, but for me, it really helps me let go of some desire and some greed, because I know that life will turn and change into dust.
Well, the cemetery contemplations are usually given for people that have excessive lust or desire, and they get so easily attached to the outer form of the body, the outer look of the body. So by seeing it start decomposing, you see how it's a lot of odors and filth, and you wouldn't want to get in bed with a 3-day or 5-day-old corpse, probably, right? Because you see the real, starting to smell and starting to ooze out all kind of things. This is the nature of it, and so it helps to weaken that strong, and knowing that can happen very quickly to a person. A beautiful body can turn into something putrid very, very quickly. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of just a wake-up call for people that have strong lust and desire. And
is it good to imagine the 9 or like one of the 9 or like go back and forth versus seeing it in person? Because I don't really have access to these things. So I have a vivid imagination though, and that seems to help.
You can, there's photos of it. You can look it up and see photos of them on the internet.
Okay. Thank you, Bhante.
Or go to an autopsy.
Thank you.
Yeah, most people can't do that, but you could imagine it. But even when next time you see a roadkill, go look at it. There's dead animals. There's a dead animal body, and it also emits odors, and it's no different than your body, really. It's made up of the same bones and flesh and 4 elements.
I've been looking. I have not come
across society. You can see dead deer and other dead animals from time to time, and they smell pretty bad too when they're decomposing.
Thank you, Bhante.
Okay, now there was some. Let me kind of go over these. There were some chats. Can stream entry occur by having a clear and subtle realization? Or does it always have to be by having an impactful big experience? Usually it comes from a very strong aha moment when you're totally convinced, especially of those 3 fetters, the delusion of a self, attachment to rites and rituals, so on. So that's how usually, and it changes you in some way. It's not just the common insights that you get normally. It's a very powerful kind of experience that can last. It could last as brief as a couple of moments, the actual experience, but then it's the euphoria of that, or the amazing understanding that comes from that. That also kind of wears away. And doubts. So doubts, believing in a permanent kind of a self that is yours and you own it and control it. It's an understanding that this is just a conditioned phenomenon, a body-mind phenomenon that's conditioned and born from the past karma and desire. And it has a certain lifespan and it'll die from one or other kind of causes. So it's that kind of understanding that stays with you. Somebody put up a youtube.com autopsy. Maybe you can see an autopsy. Okay. What is the difference between axis concentration and fully absorbed concentration? Axis concentration is not the first jhana yet. It's in the neighborhood. That means you're very close. That means you might have just some sporadic thoughts coming and going, or some of the just very, the hindrances are weakened, probably, let's say, to about 90%. And so it's like you're almost in that concentration, but it's not considered the full, all the jhanic factors are not fully developed. So that's the, the kind of the theoretical, or the way that people describe this idea of axis concentration. It's called neighborhood concentration. It's like you're in the neighborhood. Let's say you were looking for a street, you're walking for hours around the city, and then finally you start seeing some signs, and then finally you get into the neighborhood. You see the corner of two streets that, oh yes, now I'm getting close, but you haven't actually got to your friend's house, something like that. Okay? So friends, we'll go ahead and stop there. I mean, it's a very big subject, but next week we'll go into the Dhammanupassana, and that is even getting into more details. So, we'll have more time to discuss the deeper aspects about the mental process and so, okay? So let's go ahead and take a few minutes break, get ready for the yoga, okay? See you back in a few minutes.
Thank you. Let's just get some audio first. No. People. No. It look like it's
This
playing.
could be a quiet meditation point time or something.
Yeah. Now, please mute yourself, please. And so try to stand straight, relax your arms at the sides. Just begin some deep, slow breathing. Take 2 or 3 seconds to expand your abdomen, rib cage, and upper chest. Hold the air in the lungs for 2 seconds and slowly breathe out. Just take a few more breaths like that, developing this mindfulness. Breathing in, letting go of the past and future. Breathing out, standing here and now. Breathing in, letting go of the past and future. Breathing out, standing here and now. Breathing in, feeling the whole body. Breathing out, feeling the whole body. Now we're going to combine this breathing with these movements. You can try to follow me as we do this. So with the next in-breath, raise the hands over the head. Interlock the fingers, turn the palms up, straighten the arms. Stretch the head back, stretch upwards. Release the fingers, out breath, arms back to the sides. And again, in breath. Stretch the hands up, bend back a little bit. Feel the arch in the lower spine. Out breath. Once more, in. Out. Just close the eyes. Just feel your feet pressing the floor. Feel the increased body sensations. Feel the clothing touching the outer skin. Other sensations under the skin. Just letting go of your thoughts. Just let the thoughts come and go in the back of the mind. Just keep the standing body. sensations in the front of the awareness. And the next in-breath, lift up on the balls of the feet while raising the arms over the head in this way, facing the hands toward each other, and stretch up. Out breath, come back down. In, stretch. Out. In. Out. Relax. Keep feeling the body, feel the increased sensations. With each exercise, feel more and more increased different sensations. Stay concentrated in the body. Okay, next we'll do side bending, using both arms. On an in-breath, raise both arms up. Keep your fingers and arms straight, close to your head. The out-breath, bend over your right side. Feel the stretch of the side. Keep the arms parallel to each other. In-breath, lift up. Then go to the other side, out-breath. In, into the right, out breath. In, out. In, out. Out. Out breath, lower both arms. Let's close the eyes. We feel the outline of the standing body in the mind's eye. Feel the head balanced on top, arms at the sides, clothing touching the skin, feet pressing the floor. All those different places create the outline of a standing body. Keep remembering standing, standing, standing. It's clear comprehension of the body, clear comprehension of the present moment. The body is standing now. It's part of mindfulness of the body. When standing, know that you're standing. You can now spread the feet apart about 3 feet. Hold the arms out at the side. We're going to do twisting from right to left. So breathe in. On the out breath, twist to the right. Keep your eyes focused on the hand going back. In breath, come back to the front. Let your feet turn with the body, then twist to the other side on the out breath. In breath, back to the front. Just continue twisting to each side with the breathing. The out breath going back. In breath, front. And the other side, out breath. In. Once more to each side. Relax. Just close the eyes, feel each foot pressing the floor. Feel the arms and hands hanging at the side. Feel the sort of pulsation in your fingers. Feel the head balanced on top, and the eyes in the socket. Present moment, body centered awareness. Mindfulness of the body. Now place the hands together at the chest. Breathe in, raise the hands over the head. In the out breath, lower the hands to the chest, bend the knees, lower down, try to keep the back upright. Feel the stretch in your hips and knees. In breath, push all the way up, hands over the head. In out breath, try to come down a little farther. In. Out. In out breath, arms to the sides. Just close the eyes. Just keep feeling the body. Don't give the mind time to get carried away in other thoughts. Feel the clothing touching the skin. Feet pressing the floor. Hands at the sides. Eyes in the socket. There is this body is for the sake of mindfulness and awareness. Okay, one last exercise, forward and backward bending. We'll breathe in. On the out breath, bend forward, keep the head lifted up, looking out in front. Let the hands come to your kneecaps, keep the legs straight, flatten the spine. In the in-breath, lift up. Move the hands around the back, under the buttocks for support. Let the head go back, gently bend back on the out breath, not too far. Keep your eyes open. Look at the ceiling. In breath, carefully lift up. And the second time, let the hands come down below your knees, but still keep the head lifted up. Feel the extra stretch in the hamstring muscles. Let the little bones in the lower spines stretch out. In breath, lift up. Hands under the buttocks, and the back bend, and the out breath. Be careful. In breath, lift up. And the third time, let the hands come down as far as you can, towards your ankles, or even the feet, as far down as you can reach, but keeping the legs straight. Let the little bones in the lower spine stretch out, or to hold that position longer. Just feel all the sensations. And then again, lifting up. Breathe in. And once more, the back bend on the out breath. Just be careful. In breath, lift up. And the out breath, relax. Feel the whole body vibrating, pulsating with activated life force, being the billions of cells, molecules, and atoms that make up this body, interacting, keeping this body alive. There is this body for the sake of developing mindfulness and understanding, but without getting attached to it. Or becoming obsessed with it, or conceited about it. That's the right understanding. You can now bring the feet back together. Okay. So now we'll come back to our seats, get ready for the sitting. Just get comfortable and sitting in your sitting posture. Try to keep the back straight, the chin lifted up, level with the floor. Gently close your eyes. Feel your eyes in the sockets. Feel the eyelid stretched over the eyeballs. Just feel your head balanced on top of the spinal column. From that point behind the eyes, just try to feel the outline of the sitting body. That vague sense of the head on top, arms at the sides, hands touching together, buttocks pressing the seat, feet tucked underneath. If you can, just try to hold that outline of the body in the mind's eye. And just remind yourself of sitting, sitting. When sitting, know that the body is sitting. And begin taking some deep, slow breaths to feel the more dynamic expanding and contracting of the breathing in the middle of the body. Do the deep breathing like we're doing in the yoga session, holding the breath in a couple of seconds to allow the oxygen to get out into the bloodstream. On the out breath, feel the last bit of air go out of the lungs. It's cultivating this present moment awareness. Breathing in, letting go of the past and future. Breathing out, sitting here and now. Breathing in, letting go of the past and future. Breathing out, sitting here and now. Breathing in, feeling the whole body. Breathing out, feeling the whole body. Now we're going to counting our breaths from 1 to 10 to develop a more continuous concentration on the breathing. I'll do the counting for you. Just try to follow that with your breathing concentration. So with the next expanding in breath, mentally count to 1. Hold the breath a second. And with the contracting out breath, also count to 1. Feel the last bit of air go out. Next in breath 2. Out breath 2. In 3. Out 3. In 4, out 4, in 5, out 5, in 6, out 6, in 7, out 7, in 8, out 8, in 9, out 9, in 10, out 10, now discontinue the counting so that your breathing return to its uncontrolled or shorter, irregular rhythm, but continue to feel it, to observe it. Keep your attention focused in the center of the body. Feel the residual expanding and contracting sensation. And feel where the clothing is rubbing against the skin of your abdomen, stomach, or rib cage, or chest. As it expands and contracts. Just make that the main focus of your concentrated awareness. Just knowing when the breath is coming in, and knowing when the breath is going out. You know it by feeling the sensation. To help remember and stay focused, make these brief mental reminders. Breathing in, sitting. Breathing out, sitting. Breathing in, sitting. Breathing out, sitting. It's the ongoing, continuous, present moment of this breathing body. Mindfulness of breathing, mindfulness of the body together. This breathing is occurring within the larger body. Keeping expanded awareness. You can feel that outline of the body, that's expanded awareness. Just tuning into the 4 phases of each breath cycle. Expanding in breath and the brief pause. Contracting out breath and the brief pause. Notice the pauses, the brief pauses between the breaths. Powerful awareness. If you still have lots of thoughts, you can combine this breathing awareness with the counting. Try to count to 10 by yourself. See if you can make it to 10 without the mind getting lost. Otherwise, just maintain that awareness. Breathing in, sitting. Breathing out, sitting. Breath by breath. Moment by moment. Be alert for thoughts trying to sneak into the mind, steal your attention away. Just let the thoughts come and go in the back of the mind, keeping the breathing body in the front of the awareness. Turn up the power of the mental microscope to notice more and subtler detailed sensation in the breathing. Notice how each breath is different, sometimes longer, sometimes shorter. Sometimes you feel the sensations in the abdomen, sometimes in the rib cage or chest. It's always changing. Pauses between the breaths may be longer or shorter. Be like a scientist looking down through a microscope, observing the experiment of this breathing body. Knowing how this breathing keeps this body alive. If you have a good awareness and not too many thoughts, you can understand this is a more concentrated mind. If you're still getting carried away in thoughts, it's an unconcentrated mind. You can count 10 breaths without the mind getting lost. It's the beginning of a concentrated mind. And notice any other mental states. If you catch yourself totally lost in thoughts, recognize it as lost. Take a deep, slow breath. Bring the mind back into the body. Back in, sitting. Out, sitting. Take several more deep, slow breaths. Get recentered, awake in the body. Breathing in, sitting. Breathing out, sitting. Different sensations come and go. Pleasure, pain come and go. Various thoughts come and go. Mental states come and go. Those are all just constant flow of change and impermanence of the body and mind, its nature of impermanence. All the various karmic habits of thought. Keep an expanded mind, don't contract around any specific sensations or thought. Knowing that this body, these feelings, these mind states exist, constantly changing, just for the sake of developing mindfulness and clear comprehension, not clinging to any of them. From time to time, take a few deep, slow breaths. Keep the awareness charged up. Stay awake, centered in the body, opening up to the flow of impermanence, expanding the awareness to notice more sensations and thoughts. Just letting the little sense of the I or me, the mind fade away to the background. Where it become like an empty house with nobody home. You answer the call, knocking on the doors and windows. Let's spend the last few minutes of this meditation. We can contemplate the four elements of earth, water, fire, and air, especially in terms of impermanence, in terms of all the fires that are going on out in California. The fire element gets disturbed. There's not enough water element. All those people's whole lives and years of possessions, everything they identify with is gone in the blink of an eye. It's an example of impermanence on a larger scale. The same four elements in our body that cause us a lot of pain are the same four elements outside. It's in the wind and the fire, it's feeding those fires, the lack of water. All those four elements, the earth element, all those concrete houses, wooden houses, solid houses get reduced to ashes. The same four elements in our body, the same elements in the external world, they get disturbed, out of balance for different reasons, cause death and destruction in the blink of an eye. So let's try to send out metta thoughts. Let's do some deep, slow breathing. On each out breath, just imagine these waves of metta thoughts, wishing that may all these beings, may they be able to be safe, be well, even though their material possessions are all burnt up. They still have their mind, which is the important thing. Just send them these thoughts, wishing, giving them the strength and the patience, the mindfulness and wisdom to deal with all of this pain and destruction. And let the truth of the Dhamma be visible. So again, start do some deep, slow breathing with each out breath. Imagine these waves of metta thoughts going outward, hopefully soothe people's fear and worry, agitation in people's mind. Dukkha jani dukkha bhayapada jani bhaya sukhapada jani sukha hontu sabbe pipanino. May the suffering be free from suffering. May the fear struck be free from fear. May the grieving be free from grief. In this way may all beings live with mindfulness and wisdom. Thus spoke the Buddha. Now mindfully place your hands at the edge of your knees. Take one more deep breath. As you breathe in, stretch the head backwards, pull the hands up against the knees to arch your spine. And lift the head up on an in-breath. On the out-breath, press the chin to the top of the chest. Stretch the neck vertebrae. Lift the chin up level on an in-breath. And relax on an out-breath. Put a smile on your face. Okay, friends, so this brings our meditation to an end. I see there's some other questions that came in the chat. I don't have time to go over them now, but maybe have a chance to look at them next week. Okay, friends, so during this week, try to identify your mental states as they come up during your daily life or any other the contemplations of the mindfulness, even in the external world. You can observe greed, hatred, and delusion in yourself. Practice the M&Ms, stopping every hour to bring attention back to the present moment, sending metta out. Wherever the mind gets contracted, expanded with thoughts of metta. Okay?
Thank you, Bhante.
Sadhu, 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 Bhante.
So during this week, read the last section of the contemplation of Dhammanupassana. We'll start that. That's a big section. Actually, it'll take several weeks to put through that section. Okay? So be safe, be well, be mindful, be wise.
Buddhaya.
Sadhu, 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 Namo Buddhaya.